overturned his murder convictions.
Murdaugh, who will likely serve the rest of his life behind bars after pleading guilty to millions of dollars in state and federal financial crimes, nonetheless wants to prove he is not the shooter who killed his wife Maggie and their youngest son Paul on their hunting estate back in 2021.
Fox's Jonathan Sari outside the court in Lexington, South Carolina. Next hour, it's Luigi Mangione's turn in federal court in New York City. Fox's Brian Yennis is there.
He could plead guilty to federal interstate stalking charges resulting in the death of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. A senior DOJ source tells Fox News there is no plea deal today. He's promised nothing in return and is allowed to plead guilty if he chooses. We're told the DOJ will push for the maximum sentence of life in prison without parole.
A guilty plea in the federal case could allow Mangione to try to get state murder charges dismissed under New York's double jeopardy laws. The World War II memorial in Washington, D.C. vandalized, spray-painted pink, upsetting Iraq War veteran Deborah Mortensen, who tells Fox News Digital.
People fought and died for our country, and it's dishonoring this country and all we've been through.
President Trump is angry, posting on Truth Social there can be no greater insult, adding, "We're on the vandals' trail," writing, "Where do these animals come from?" And we're just learning the president's asking the Supreme Court to allow White House ballroom construction to continue after a judge ordered a halt to that building. And at Kennedy Center, the board has voted to put the president's name back on, calling it the Kennedy Center restored and renovated by President Donald J. Trump. Democratic Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, whose lawsuit led to a judge order name removal, calls it an attempt to circumvent that. America's listening to Fox News.
A small business affirmation from Progressive. Bakery owners, you will be loved today. Every pastry will be flaky. Your cake will make a child's day. Your delivery van won't get sideswiped by a distracted garbage truck driver. But if so, breathe easy, knowing you'll get back to business quickly with Progressive protecting your commercial auto. See if you can save in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
You're great at protecting your data, but lots of places could still expose you to identity theft.
I thought it was safe.
If that happens, LifeLock gives you a U.S.-based restoration agent who will stick by your side from start to finish. Phone calls, filing documentation, preparing insurance claims, your agent handles it all. In fact, we're so confident restoration is guaranteed or your money back. Isn't it nice to have someone like that on your side? Save up to 30% with promo code NEWS at LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
Another update from your local news source, 92.7 and 98.5 WGNT, the talk of Delmarva.
Delaware Senator Chris Coons is backing bipartisan legislation aimed at preserving the military service records of Afghan allies who worked alongside American forces. Coons and South Dakota Senator Mike Rounds introduced the ARCH Act. It would create a secure Defense Department system where eligible Afghan allies or their representatives could submit service records and supporting documents. The Pentagon would verify those records using military, contractor, and biometric information. Those whose claims are denied would receive notice, have a chance to appeal, and could submit additional evidence. The first class has graduated from the University of Maryland Eastern Shore's Aviation Maintenance Technician program. Governor Wes Moore delivered the keynote address. The program provides technical training and the path into aviation maintenance careers. Maryland allocated more than $2.9 million in the latest fiscal year for regional airport projects, including work at Ocean City Municipal Airport and Easton Airport. Ocean City is moving ahead with plans for a regional sports complex in Worcester County. The mayor and city council have approved a purchase contract for close to 200 acres off Route 50 and Old Ocean City Road. Plans call for an indoor-outdoor complex. City officials say occupancy tax revenue, state funding, and other available sources would be used to pay for the project. Ocean City will now work with the Maryland Stadium Authority on planning and development. And Delaware Senator Lisa Blunt Rochester is joining other Senate Democrats in opposing a proposed federal change to the Equity Assistance Centers. The centers help schools and communities comply with federal desegregation and civil rights laws. The senators are asking Education Secretary Linda McMahon to withdraw the proposed rule and maintain federal support for the program. For more on these and other stories, visit talkofdelmarva.com. I'm Bob Archer.
If you're thinking about retiring soon, be sure to tune in to Wise Money with Michael Anderson of Anderson Wealth Management every Saturday morning at 9. Michael Anderson talks about the latest trends, the latest headlines that could impact your retirement. So again, listen Saturday mornings at 9 to Wise Money with Michael Anderson of Anderson Wealth Management. Michael Anderson, registered investment advisor, is doing business as Anderson Wealth Management is a registered investment advisor.
Listen up, Delmarva anglers. The Talk of Delmarva Fishing Report, 7 days a week after the 6 a.m., 10 a.m., and 4 p.m. news and sports.
The Talk of Delmarva Fishing Report is brought to you by Complete Tree Care, licensed and insured. Request an estimate at CompleteTreeCareDE.com. And Chesapeake Bath and Home Solutions, employee owned, so every project is personal. Visit ChesapeakeBath.com.
It's time for the Talk of Delmarva Fishing Report with Eric Burnley.
Denrick has closed another access point for Sussex County fishermen. This time it's the Seaford Fishing Pier that is close to the Seaford boat ramp on the Nanticoke River. Denrick's Division of Fish and Wildlife determined that there were structural flaws to the pier during a recent inspection, and the pier would remain closed until the problem was corrected or a new pier was built. The fishing pier at Riverview Park is close by and will remain open, as will the boat ramp and parking lot. The Flounder Pounder tournament out of Paradise Grill on Long Neck is ongoing, with the Yips in first place at the end of day 2 with an 8.9 pounder. This is Eric Burnley with your Talk of Delmarva Fishing Report.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
For you right now, an incredible plane crash into the World Trade Center here at the lower tip of Manhattan.
It's believed a 737 has crashed into this speculation at this point, but at least 3 floors taken out, crashed into the side of the building. Joining us right now, one of the producers with Fox Report, Owen Mugen on the scene. Owen, what do you know? What do you see? Where are you?
Yeah, Brian, I'm on the roof of my building, which is about 5 blocks to the south of the World Trade Center. I'm looking right now at the World Trade Center. There's a massive gaping hole on the second tower. It's about 15 stories from the roof. It's just unbelievable to look at. There's a massive hole.
It looks like something out of a movie. There's a huge hole in the side of tower number 1.
There was another one. We just saw another one. We just saw another one apparently go. Another plane just flew into the second tower. This has to be deliberate, folks.
Well, that would...
My friends, it's hard to believe it's been 25 years, and as you know, I worked at Tower 2 of the World Trade Center. And if I was in that building that day, I would have been probably on the 105th floor of the Trade Center or one of the other floors that I frequented. I wouldn't be here today if I hadn't been slated to travel on a plane that day. However, it's been 25 years, and we are going to remember throughout these next several weeks those events leading up to 9/11. But I want to welcome in retired NYPD officer Mike Codella. Mike's author of the book The Evil That Walked New York, One Cop's Pursuit for the Truth Behind Son of Sam and its connection to the disappearance of Etan Pates. Mike, I have to tell you, as a former New Yorker, that both of those cases that mentioned in your book, Son of Sam, I was trying to get dates with women back then. It was very difficult getting dates with women because women didn't know who the Son of Sam was. And the Eitan Pates case, you may not remember if you're not from the New York, New Jersey area. I was working in radio at that time, and boy, oh boy, did that case take over the media just as the Son of Sam case did. I have to tell you, after all these years, Mike, I still do not believe all we've been told about the disappearance of Eitan Pates. First of all, let me say, I think his parents were not the people that the media was propping them up to be, number one. And number two, the man who was arrested, the bodega owner, I never believed myself that he was responsible. But we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. Let's talk about your recollections of September 11th. You were at the time of the attacks at number 7 World Trade Center, and when the attacks happened, you ran towards the North Tower, correct?
Actually, I was on my way to work. I was on my way to 7 World Trade, which was where my office was.
Mm-hmm.
I was stuck in traffic that day because of the obviously because of the first plane hitting the tower. At some point, I was able to maneuver my car behind a FDNY fire truck, and I was able to get past the traffic. But once I got out of the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, there was more traffic. So I just basically pulled over and ran from the exit of the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel to the World Trade Center. And my objective was to try and help people get out of the building. I ran into the South Tower, and at some point, I started to go up the steps to help people come out, but there was a major flow of people coming out already. So I was actually hampering their escape. So I ran to another staircase rather, to help go up that staircase to see if I could help people. And at that point, that's when the building came down.
The staircases at the World Trade Center, surprisingly, there were 4 of them, one on each corner of the building. They were quite narrow. They weren't as wide as you would think they would be. And that always surprised me, because we would use the stairwells going between floors. It was a lot quicker than waiting for the elevator. So if we needed to go from the 98th floor to up to maybe the 102nd floor, we would just use the stairs. It was faster.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's...
Well, Mike, I can tell you, my department, they got on the elevator in the Sky Lobby, the 78th floor, and they were coming down when the plane that hit the South Tower. At the moment, they were going down the elevator from the Sky Lobby to the lobby, and the plane going through the building severed the cables, and the elevator went into a free fall. Wow. And landed in the lobby, crashed. And the only reason we know that is one of the people that worked in my department was pulled out by a New York City firefighter who was running through the lobby at the South Tower, and heard and felt the elevator come crashing down into the lobby, and saw the dust that had been created. Forced the doors open. Some of those that from my department had used their laptops, turned their laptops on to generate light in the elevator itself. He was able to pull one person out, but by that time the jet fuel had been coming down the elevator shaft and ignited. He could not get anyone else out, but no one could move. Their legs were all broken, unfortunately, because of the fall. And, as we look back 25 years, I have to tell you that for somebody who worked there, I used to drive in most of the time. And I would park just in front of number 4 World Trade Center across from the Century 21 department store. I had one of the attendants there. I took good care of him, so I always had my space. And then Christmas of 2000, he came to me and he said, "You're going to have to find another place to park. We're closing down all the parking here." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" Well, all the parking areas outside were closed. And if you remember, all the banks and the shipping companies in the lobby, it was great to work in the World Trade Center. You could do anything there. You could ship anything you wanted anywhere in the world. You could get foreign currency if you're going on a trip. It was fantastic. But then the Port Authority, I guess before it was sold, they started getting rid of and pushing out all the banks and the shipping companies. I thought that was very strange, and then all of a sudden I couldn't park in front of number 4 anymore. Did you pay mind to what was going on at that time, Mike?
I realized what was going on. I didn't really give it much thought other than to think it was just business as usual, and there was the powers that be wanted other properties and other businesses. So I didn't really give it much thought, no.
You know, as bad as 9/11 was for this country, and it was, but some good things came out of 9/11. And you talked about coming through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, and it's not, the Brooklyn Battery is not far from where the World Trade Center sat and far from City Hall, but Tunnel to Towers became an incredible program in the United States today because of one firefighter who ran through and never did, by the way, never did survive, ran through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel to get to the Trade Center, right?
Yeah, Stephen Siller, I believe was his name.
Yep,
yeah.
That is correct. Well, when we come back, I want to talk about your book and the Son of Sam case. I'd like to talk about that, and also Eitan Pates, because those are two cases, along with, I guess, Bernie Goetz case out of captured the city as well, even though the city was out to capture him. But the Son of Sam case and Eitan Pates, we used to call him on radio. I worked out on Long Island. We used to call him Little Eitan Pates because that's what it was, Little Eitan Pates. What happened to Little Eitan Pates? We're going to talk about that with Mike Cadella, author, The Evil That Walked New York, One Cop's Pursuit for the Truth Behind Son of Sam and its connection to the disappearance of Eitan Pates. More with Mike Cadella here on Your News Talk America in just a moment. Please stay with us.
Smith on Your News Talk America.
Here's a look at your Delmarva forecast. Cloudy skies expected today with a chance of thunderstorms. Highs level off around 87, winds out of the east around 5 miles per hour. Slight chance of thunderstorms tonight, lows level off around 70, mainly cloudy skies expected. Sunshine mixed with clouds at times tomorrow, daytime highs approaching 86. I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center along the coast. Right now, it's 82 degrees.
This is Buck Sexton. The Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show now airs noon to 3 weekdays on WGMD's 92.7, the Talk of Delmarva.
I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina with your KFC weekend weather update. Saturday will bring less humidity with some sun peeking through. Expect a high of 82 degrees. Introducing the KFC $10 bucket of the day deal. Now every weekday you get a different bucket of crispy crunchy chicken for just $10 each. 24 nuggets $10, 8 piece $10, 10 wings $10, 8 tenders $10 only at KFC. Prices and participation may vary while supplies last.
You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You've still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight illnesses like pneumococcal pneumonia and RSV. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and can help protect you from getting really sick. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. See more at PfizerForAll.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Ready for a change of naturally cool scenery? Let's go coastal. On Maryland's coast, it's easy to slow down and enjoy the moment. From Ocean City to Berlin, Snow Hill, and Pocomoke City, you'll find charming shops, diverse dining options, local artwork and murals, and plenty of history to explore. Grab some fresh seafood, go on a hike, or take in the waterfront views on the Pocomoke River or coastal bays and just relax. It's everything you've been needing and more. Start planning your getaway at visitmarylandscoast.org. Maryland's Coast, you're welcome.
Views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and not necessarily the staff, management, ownership, advertisers, or sponsors of WGMD. Scott Lennox from FishinOC.com joins Mike Bradley Friday mornings at 8:20 right now during the height of the season to talk all things fishing. 92.7 and 98.5 WGMD. Talking fishing on Delmarva. Celebrating over 40 years. 92.7 and 98.5. The Talk of Delmarva.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
Digital Interactive Friday continues on Your News Talk America. I'm your anchorman, Jake Smith. If you're listening to the broadcast, you'd rather watch the broadcast, you can do so at realnewstalk.com, Facebook Live. Tune us in. You'll see me sitting behind the shiny golden microphone here on Your News Talk America. Our panelists this morning, we're going to continue our conversation with Mike Cudella, author, The Evil That Walked New York, One Cop's Pursuit for the Truth Behind Son of Sam and its connection to the disappearance of Eitan Pates. Mike, I have to tell you that I remember the summer of 1977 like it was yesterday, and how the Son of Sam case really took over the city. I mean, the city was scared to death because we never knew where the Son of Sam killer was going to show up. And I will never forget a woman by the name of Stacy Moskowitz being shot. And I believe she was with her boyfriend. They were parked along the there was a parking area along the Bell Parkway in Brooklyn, not far from Kennedy Airport. And, you know, you would think that you're safe there, but David Berkowitz allegedly showed up there and fired at this couple. I believe her boyfriend was killed. Stacy Moskowitz was seriously wounded. Am I correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit, if you can, about the Son of Sam case and your thoughts on all these years later on David Berkowitz and his conviction and the Son of Sam murders.
So David Berkowitz was basically a serial killer from the summer of '76, and he was arrested in August of '77.
Right.
Basically, he had the whole city running in fear, especially females, because mainly his targets were females in their 20s with dark hair.
Right.
So at the time, a lot of women were either putting their hair up or dyeing their hair blonde because they thought that was his intention, was females with dark hair, which it just happened to be that way. He wasn't necessarily targeting women with dark hair, but of course, the police didn't know that, and New York City didn't know that at the time. But he gets arrested, and basically everyone believes that the case is over because they caught the one person that they believed at the time was doing all of these killings and shootings. So he killed 7 people, I believe, and he shot 7. He killed 6 and shot 7. And like I said, it was going on practically a year, from July of July of '76 to August of '77. When he does get arrested, again, everyone in the city breathed a sigh of relief, believing that the perpetrator was arrested. When he initially gets arrested, he tells some wild story of his neighbor's dog telling him to commit these crimes. His neighbor's name was Sam Carr.
Right.
And he said Sam's dog was telling him to do these crimes. And Berkowitz wrote letters to the press at the time of the shootings, and he left letters at the crime scene for the police to find. And he signed him Son of Sam. And he got the name Sam from the neighbor and Son of Sam.
Right.
When he initially gets arrested, like I started to say, he says that Sam's dog told him to do these killings.
Right.
And so it was like, he was basically insane, is what his claim would eventually be. And he actually admitted to all of these shootings and homicides. But eventually, sometime after he does get arrested, he contradicts his story and he tells the truth. According to him, was that he wasn't the lone shooter,
right?
And that he was involved with the satanic cult,
right?
And along with the cult, they committed these murders and these shootings. And again, this was after he gave the original story of the dog telling him, to do these shootings. So after he proclaimed himself to be not of full mental capacity, sometime later he said that was all baloney. That was the story I was to tell if I ever did get arrested. And this is really what happened. And he goes on to talk about a cult and a satanic group. And then when he starts talking to the press about this, he eventually, or shortly thereafter, he gets cut in jail. Another inmate tries to kill him. And he comes close to killing him, actually. He just barely misses his jugular vein. And when that happens, he doesn't talk anymore. Basically, he just refuses to talk about the crimes and whether he acted alone or whether he had the help of this help of this group.
Now, is there some sort of connection between Son of Sam and the disappearance of Eitan Pates? Now, the Eitan Pates case happened back in 1979, right?
Correct. May of 1979.
Right.
So, of course, when the original Berkowitz case happened, I was only a kid. I was 13 years old. So I had nothing to do with that investigation or of course, with that arrest.
Right.
But like you, I did remember it because it was on the TV constantly, in newspapers constantly. Everyone was talking about it. So, of course, it was fresh in my mind. And as far as the Eitan Pates case, that happened in 79, a couple of years after, 2 years after Berkowitz gets arrested. And again, I was still a kid, 15 or 16 years old, but that was one of the biggest cases in the history of New York, one of the most investigated cases, as was Berkowitz.
Right.
But it was a little bit different, obviously, because it wasn't victims, well, there weren't shooting victims and murders involved. It was
a child disappearance case. Right.
Exactly. It was a child disappearance
Now
case.
they lived in Soho, did they not? His parents? Was it?
Yeah,
That's sort of what I thought. They lived in Soho, right? Which is downtown.
Right. And the connection, that's what you asked me, so I'm sorry, but I'll get back to it.
No, yeah.
The connection seemingly seems like there isn't any. One is a shooting, homicides, and committed by possibly one person. The other is a kid that was going to school, Eitan Pates school by himself. And the mother was watching out the window. However, she turns her head for a minute to tend to
Yeah, and Eitan, we're having a little bit of trouble here. We're having, Mike, you're you're freezing up a little bit. But yes, that there was one witness. She just apparently turned her head, and then he was gone. The case was cold for how many years, and then a bodega owner was arrested just a few years ago, if I remember correctly, for the murder of Eitan Pates. Tell us about that.
Like a stock boy who worked in the bodega.
Right.
And he admitted to his family that he, after all these years, killed. He actually has a history of mental illness, schizophrenia, and a bunch of other mental illnesses that he's on all kinds of medication for.
Right.
But he gave a confession to the police. They arrested him. He went to trial. The first trial was a hung jury. They didn't convict him. The second trial, with the original juries in the stand watching, some of who were crying, he was convicted. So the first jury, he was not convicted. They retried him. He was eventually convicted. Many people believe he didn't commit the murder. That he didn't abduct Eitan.
I don't believe it. Based on, I was in the media. We had experts. We had. We even had psychics coming on our radio station to talk about where is Eitan Pates. I don't believe he did it. I do believe his parents had something to do with it. I really do believe that. And I also believe that his parents were not quite the squeaky clean, loving parents that they were being portrayed by New York City media. Mike, I'll give you the final word, then we got a scat.
Well, basically, an inmate calls me up one day and tells me that he has information, first-hand information, of the satanic cult that actually kidnapped E-Town Pace, and that's the same satanic cult that Berkowitz was involved with.
Whoa. I had not heard that before, but I'm not surprised because, again, I'll say we had psychics that were telling us that these people, his parents, were into a lot of weird stuff. And Mike, I'd like to have you back on again in the future to talk more about this. The book, my friends, The Evil That Walked New York. If you lived in New York during that period, these were cases that really took over the city. And even in regard living on Long Island, David Berkowitz had made threats that he was coming out to Long Island to shoot women, and we were concerned about that. Mike Codella, the author, The Evil That Walked New York, one cop's pursuit of the truth behind Son of Sam and its connection to the disappearance of Eitan Pates. My friends, it's possible that neither case has been solved yet, that these cases still remain open. You agree, Mike?
Yes, absolutely. The book comes out October.
Mike, thanks so much for coming on today. We appreciate it very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. You're listening to Your News Talk America. I'm your anchorman, Jake Smith. We'll be back in just a moment on Your News Talk America Digital Interactive Friday. Back after this.
The best part of your day is between 9 and noon Eastern Time on Your News Talk America.
Here is the marine forecast from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center. Partly sunny today, afternoon showers and storms possible in the area, and highs top out near 82 degrees. And on the water, winds turn to the east around 5 knots by afternoon, seas a foot or less. The current water temperature is 76 degrees. At Cambridge, low tide 12:34 p.m., high tide 6:06 p.m., low tide 12:40 a.m., and at Rehoboth Beach, high tide 9:32 a.m., low tide 3:35 p.m., high tide 9:58 p.m.
The Talk of Delmarva Fishing Report here on 92.7 and 98.5 WGMD. You're listening to WGMD. Mike Bradley mornings on WGMD.
This WGMD Fox Business Update is brought to you by Sussex Environmental Consultants. For a healthy home, call 302-947-1810.
I'm Susan Lee, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Stocks open mixed. The S&P 500 closed at a record yesterday and rose slightly in early trading. The latest reading on the status of the U.S. consumer is disappointing. Retail sales declined 0.6% last month. Economists were expecting an increase. The drop may reflect the pullback of Amazon Prime Day and competing sales to June and the end of tax refunds that were propping up spending in previous months. Reddit shares are up 11%. The social media company is joining the S&P 500 on Tuesday. Some AI companies are training their models on Reddit data. And Workday shares are flat after yesterday's rally. Reuters says investment firm Silver Lake has been talking with Workday about taking it over. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Jenny Coselda. Invested in you.
My name is Whitney Allen, and I'm a widow. My husband, Ryan, died. We never thought we'd ever have to use life insurance, but the unexpected happened. With Ethos, signing up was fast and 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. No medical exams, and you can get up to $3 million worth of coverage. I'm grateful we were prepared.
Get your free quote at ethos.com/term. That's ethos.com/term. Paid spokesperson. Time spent on application may vary. Online health questions required.
Broadcasting from the Mighty Geek Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
Good. Well, our next panelist, if you're watching, you can see him smiling. He's been a very good friend to this program. His name is Ryan Morgan. Ryan is Pentagon and military reporter for the Epoch Times. Got my new edition of the Epoch Times in the mail yesterday. I'll be sitting down with that, reading it on Sunday morning. Ryan, you wrote a very interesting report on this yesterday. What is going on aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln? Is it more clogged toilets like were occurring on the Gerald R. Ford? All right. Do you have to? Okay, there you go.
Yeah, sorry, I just had my audio muted.
Yeah. No
First
problem.
off, thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Ryan.
If I could give some mild pushback, I don't think I'd call it a mutiny. Just some general context.
Yeah.
These things happen. We are approaching sort of the end of what would be considered a typical carrier deployment. So, I mean, these guys have been at sea for a long time. And before I get into like all of what's going on specifically with the Lincoln, just some context. These guys, their last port call, from what I understand, was back in December, right around
last year.
Yeah, right around Christmas. So they've been on a boat, miles of cramped gray hallways for 8 months now. And not just 8 months at sea, but 8 months at sea during persistent combat operations, blockade operations, fending off drone and missile attacks. This has been I would say, a superlative deployment for them. I mean, they've been going at it. So I don't want to diminish what they're going through, what they're putting up with. So putting that out there first, and then just in general, anytime you have a ship deployed at sea that long, you are going to have reports about, morale breaking down, systems breaking down, toilets getting clogged, things like that. So it does happen. We have a few anecdotes in the last couple weeks, and we don't know if these anecdotes are representative of just those people or if they're representative of a broader percentage of the ship. So it's not to say that there isn't a problem on the ship. We don't have the full picture of the context. That's what's been kind of going back and forth here.
Yeah, there was one report where one sailor said, "I'm out of here," and jumped overboard. I mean, is that accurate, Ryan?
What we know so far, so yesterday CENTCOM put out a social media post, a fact check post, going after some of the reporting that's been out there. Some of those reports are about a suicide attempt. What they did acknowledge was that somebody did go overboard on August 3rd. Whether he fell overboard, whether he jumped intentionally,
we don't know.
They're not telling us specifically. I also spoke with CENTCOM not with CENTCOM, with Navy Public Affairs earlier this week. They gave me a statement which was, based on the information we have, or that leaders have so far, we have not seen an increase in suicide attempts or suicidal ideation. That's not the same as them saying there have been no suicide attempts. And again, I mean, suicide, unfortunately, is a thing that does occur sometimes, and it's not uncommon for ships at sea.
I mean, these sailors, these Marines are living under war conditions. They are in an active war zone, even though they're not, we're out flying jets right now. There's no question that at any moment, the president could say, all right, go. And they have to live like that, right, Ryan? They have to live with that constant state of readiness. Yeah, absolutely. One other thing I would say is general quarters. I mean, I don't know how much time they spent under general quarters, but that's basically everybody's ready to put out fires from battle damage. Everybody's ready to, fight like crazy. Everybody is basically on call, ready for action. And general quarters conditions can last for days at a time. Wow, so these guys going without sleep. Yeah. Right. So I mean, in the context of, certainly the height of the conflict was March, early April. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it has been since then. I imagine there's been some recovery. I mean, the op tempo is probably slowed a little bit, but that's not to say that, things aren't tense. And so just we need to have that context and not just, pretend that there are no issues or that these aren't stressful. But, there is also kind of a typical military culture that's something akin to, your parents saying, back in my day, we went to school uphill both ways. Like there is a certain, And I understand. I mean, if I was a parent of a United States Marine and that Marine sent an email home claiming that I don't like the fact that the toilets are backing up, I'm saying, why did I support my kid becoming a United States Marine if they're complaining about the toilets? Right. Ryan, our listener producer Eric just posted in the Dial Lounge, time to come home, but he follows it up with a question for you. Are the stories we hear about overboard sailors and suicide attempts on the USS Abraham Lincoln credible? If so, why is it only one ship that it's coming from. Now, that might have something to do with the command structure of that ship. We don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. But Secretary of War Pete Hegseth responded to those allegations, saying that it's a bunch of nonsense. And you wrote about that yesterday in the Epoch Times. Hegseth pushes back on reports of deteriorating conditions aboard aircraft carrier Lincoln. I put the link to Ryan's piece, and he's been very busy this week, by the way. I put the link to that piece. You can go and read it for yourself. So how do you respond to what producer Eric, the question that he posted on our Dial Interactive board?
Yeah, absolutely. A very fair question, Eric. I appreciate it. I don't think I'm in a position to say that none of these accounts are true. I think I said earlier that we have some anecdotes. Say we have 5, 10, a dozen anecdotes. We don't know if these are representative of 5 to 10 people or 5 to 10% of a ship of 5,000 sailors.
Oh, is that the crew of the Lincoln? It's about 5,000 sailors and Marines.
Actually, I may be off. It's several thousand. I think.
Okay, there you go. Well, you know what? That's a very small percentage of those who are unhappy in their current working conditions.
Right. Yeah. So what we don't have is a full representative survey of the entire ship's crew. What we have is several anecdotes that are coming out, and this has just been in the span of a week because Navy leaders recently met with the families of the deployed troops on that ship. As far as I think there's a part 2 to the question of why are we just hearing it from the Lincoln and not the other ships in the carrier strike group? I think that's a fair question. Some context back with the Ford, there were some grumblings of issues at sea, and then there was a fire that broke out. We're still getting kind of some information about, or they're still investigating why that fire broke out, what happened that sidelined that ship for a couple weeks. But I mean, it's not to say that the Lincoln is the only ship that is having people on board complain that things are happening. But I do know specifically with the Lincoln, it has been at sea since December. They have not made a port call.
That's a long time to be at sea. That is a long time to be at sea. Now, yesterday, I was listening to one of the reports on Fox, and I was not aware that we actually have more firepower right now in the Middle East, ready to hit Iran, than we did during the February-March activity, the military activity, Epic Fury. Where have we intensified that military firepower in the Middle East since that time?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to look more at that Fox News report. I don't know for certain that that's necessarily true. I do know that we added at least one Marine Expeditionary Unit into the region. So that is, people call them mini carriers. You've got kind of a small, it's basically a squadron worth of strike aircraft. So, it's a few extra F-35s. I don't know necessarily that there has been a specific increase, but we have probably cycled new troops, new units, new capabilities into the region. I mean, that's about all I can really say specifically as to that report.
Yeah, and I think when that was done, Ryan, tell me if I'm wrong, there was the possibility that Karg Island would be invaded by those Marines, that we were going to take Karg Island. I think that is sort of off the planning board now, but that's why that was so, correct?
Yeah, I don't know necessarily that a decision was ever. I'll push back. President Trump definitely talked about taking Karg Island, whether that was a ruse, whether that was misdirection. It very well might have been. But there was a lot of talk about, we've got these extra Marines, extra airborne paratroopers in the region, potentially for that reason.
We've got much more to talk about with Ryan Morgan, who is the Pentagon military reporter for the Epoch Times. Ryan wrote an interesting piece yesterday on a drone attack task force in the Middle East. We're going to talk to him about that, as well as what's going on with Cuba. Could we invade Cuba? Could it be Bay of Pigs too? Let's find out. Ryan Morgan is joining us, and we'll be back to talk more with Ryan on Your News Talk America. Digital Interactive Friday continues after this.
Jake Smith on Your News Talk America.
Here's a look at your Delmarva forecast. Cloudy skies expected today with a chance of thunderstorms. Highs level off around 87, easterly winds around 5 miles per hour. Mainly cloudy skies expected tonight. Slight chance of thunderstorms, lows dip down to about 70. Highs level off around 86 tomorrow. Sunshine mixed with clouds at times. I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center, inland. Currently 83.
The best mix of news, talk, and sports. 92.7 and 98.5. The Talk of Delmarva. News on the hour on WGND.
My name is Brittany Allen, and I'm a widow. My husband Ryan died. We never thought we'd ever have to use life insurance, but the unexpected happened. With Ethos, signing up was fast and 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. No medical exams, and you can get up to $3 million worth of coverage. I'm grateful we were prepared.
Get your free quote at ethos.com/term. That's ethos.com/term. Paid spokesperson. Time spent on application may vary. Online health questions required.
You're great at protecting your data, but lots of places could still expose you to identity theft.
I thought it was safe.
If that happens, LifeLock gives you a U.S.-based restoration agent who will stick by your side from start to finish. Phone calls, filing documentation, preparing insurance claims, your agent handles it all. In fact, we're so confident restoration is guaranteed or your money back. Isn't it nice to have someone like that on your side? Save up to 30% with promo code NEWS at lifelock.com. Terms apply.
Spell tree in Complete Tree Care.
L-A-W-N lawn.
What? Spell tree in Complete Tree Care.
L-A-W-N lawn.
What? Yes, Complete Lawn Care is ready to complete all of your lawn maintenance and landscaping projects, freshening up your landscaping with new mulch, complete spring cleanups, leaf removal, mowing, seeding, sod, and pavers. We are complete. Complete Tree Care and
Complete Lawn Care.
302-947-2273.
Utilities are buried throughout your community. Before you dig by hand or by machine, call 811 or Delmarva811.com for free utility marking. Every project, every time. It's the law. A message from the Delaware Public Service Commission.
A Delmarva original and one of the country's most successfully owned independent radio stations, providing news, talk, and sports to the peninsula for over 40 years. 92.7 and 98.5 WGND.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
We are back. There we go. We are back with Ryan Morgan, the Pentagon military reporter for the Epoch Times. I just want to mention, my friends, a good friend of ours, good friend of this program, Dr. Antonio Gracefo. He is a war correspondent for the Gateway Pundit. He is actually on the front lines today between the war in Russia and Ukraine. I know I am remembering him in my prayers for his protection. And I was trying to get him to come on the program today, and he doesn't have reliable internet access because of the fact that he's in an active war zone right now. But we're going to try to get him. I'm going to try to get him on the program on Monday. Now, I will be out Monday taking care of some personal business, but filling in for me will be one Brigadier General Blaine Holt, U.S. Air Force retired. He'll be filling in for me on Your News Talk America between 9 and noon. So I want to go back now, if we can, just for a moment, Ryan Morgan, to the alleged situation on the USS Lincoln. It's my understanding that the USS George Washington is actually already en route to replace the Lincoln. Is that your understanding, Ryan?
That's the rumored deployment so far. I've actually reached out to confirm that point. Don't have confirmation on that yet, but it looks like that's the deployment buildup. I mean, that ship's already doing its pre-deployment buildup, and it's likely that it's going to head to the region next and cycle in for the Lincoln.
Story you worked on and was posted yesterday at the Epoch Times. The United States creates a multinational attack Drone Task Force for the Middle East. That's very interesting, and that's the new warfare that has taken hold. Whether it's from the Russia-Ukraine war, we don't know, but right now, drone warfare is here to stay. I would imagine, right, Ryan?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Drone warfare has absolutely changed the entire meta of how we look at warfare in the modern era. What we're seeing with this specific task force in the Middle East is it's kind of an expansion of one that was set up earlier this year. So the first one was just a U.S. task force called Task Force Scorpion Strike.
Okay.
This one makes it multinational. I don't know that they have necessarily actually. I don't know who actually has joined the task force so far, but it sounds like they're in the consultation phase. They're trying to figure out which countries can contribute what capabilities. And I think the idea here that they're working with is instead of having a traditional fixed unit belonging to one specific nation, what they're trying to do is have dispersed capabilities all across the region. We might, and also just kind of have a distributed production capacity. You can kind of build.
What you're saying is the United States doesn't want to put all their eggs in one basket when it comes to drones, right? That's what you're saying?
Right. Well, I think the idea is you can have people producing these kind of cheap disposable attack drones a lot quicker than a fighter jet or an expensive missile system.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so you've got half a dozen countries perhaps that are they've got dozens of their own facilities, and they're cranking out things quickly, and you can kind of use that to supplement a traditional force, give it some strike capabilities. And these capabilities, just by virtue of the fact that it's multinational, they'd be spread all across the region. They're a lot harder to defend it against because you don't know where each drone production and hub and launch site is going to be located. And so you'd have a very distributed network of capabilities that you could call on to launch attacks, say on Iran or any of its proxies, the Houthis, Hezbollah, Iraqi Shia militias, things of that nature. They would have those capabilities all over the place.
Our listener producer Eric just posted in the Dial Lounge, courtesy of Meineke, doing car care right. Ukraine has the best drone army by far. Well, that seems to be the case. They've certainly put the hurt on Vladimir Putin and the Russian people by severely damaging his ability to refine oil into gasoline, and people in Russia are waiting on very long lines for gasoline right now, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, we throw around this term called asymmetrical, and what it really means is being able to basically punch above your weight. And so the Ukrainians have taken this simple technology, a remote control system, put a bomb on it, and you can punch above your weight. And that's what they've demonstrated. And, they don't have the same force size as the Russians. They can't necessarily, match force on force right there on the battlefield. But what they can do is they can certainly raise the cost, raise the, kind of the misery index for the average Russian as this war goes on. That's what
the misery index is definitely increased. There's no doubt about it. And politically, those long gasoline lines are not doing Vladimir Putin any good. But that's okay. That's exactly what the Ukrainians needed to do. I mean, what the Ukrainians are not gaining in terms of territory, because neither the Russians are expanding their territory and the Ukrainians are not getting back any of theirs. They're certainly making themselves heard in Russia, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Ryan, let's get to the next topic. And boy, you've been very busy this week. U.S. military intervention in Cuba on the table, Hegseth says. All right, so Secretary of War Hegseth says U.S. military intervention in Cuba is on the table. Explain.
Yeah, so certainly last year, and this was like the exact 1 year mark that you saw this force buildup start in the Caribbean Sea, where we had a carrier strike group, we had a Marine Expeditionary Unit, several other destroyers that were put into the Caribbean, and that force buildup led to what we saw on January 3rd, where U.S. Special Operations troops flew into the Venezuelan capital city of Caracas, picked up Maduro. So, and what Hegseth said is, we've seen it before. We've certainly said, when military options are on the table, when we say that, we mean it. We can do it. That's a rough paraphrase, but we saw it demonstrated earlier this year. Now, I will caveat that the force buildup that we saw pre-Maduro raid is not there now. A lot of those units have shifted over to the Middle East. The Forward Carrier Strike Group being one of them, and now they're back home altogether, back in home port in Virginia. So that force buildup, not at sea like we saw it before. Currently, the Marine Expeditionary Unit has been downsized, and it's doing a training operation in Panama right now. That being said, Cuba's right in our backyard, and you could easily see a very rapid force buildup if you want to. And the Trump administration has certainly signaled for intensifying sanctions, economic, diplomatic pressure.
Oh, they're working. The humanitarian crisis in Cuba is pretty bad right now.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen energy shortages. There's been blackouts, rolling blackouts for the last few months.
Food shortages. Water, you name it. Gas stations are closed across the country. Is it possible that the Cuban people will do what the Iranian people have not done so far, and that is overthrow their regime? Because the situations are eerily similar, aren't they?
Yeah, certainly. I wouldn't rule it out. I've long put myself out of the predictions game.
Why? You can make a ton of money.
I'm no good at it. I don't want to lose my shirt on Polymarketer Kalshi, but I will say, I've talked to people that have kind of gamed out sort of popular uprising scenarios in Venezuela and various other places, and what they said is, even if you have intense dissatisfaction by the general population, you still do need kind of catalyst capabilities. People, it's not enough that you just have a majority.
What do you mean by catalyst capabilities? Do you mean leadership to stand up and say, we're going to lead our people down this path? Do you need, do you need a Paul Revere to ride through downtown Havana? What do you mean? How do you do it? How do you encourage people to rise up against a regime?
Well, and that's the tricky thing, is because until you have somebody that does kind of that Paul Revere, go assemble the troops and we're going to storm the Capitol, you kind of have this collective action problem where that the rough majority is in favor of something, but they're all looking at each other saying, who's going to be the first, stick their neck out and try it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that unfortunately, that is true. But as the Reverend Billy Graham was fond of saying, courage is contagious. Did you ever hear that, Ryan?
I have heard that quote, yeah.
Courage is contagious. Ryan, thanks so much for coming on this morning and explaining this all to us. I'm glad that there's not an open mutiny going on aboard the Abraham Lincoln right now. That's a relief.
Just a long deployment. These things happen.
Yeah, that is not to be, that's to be expected, but not unexpected. And one of our listener producers in the Meineke Doing Car Care Right Dial Lounge says, an old submarine officer is the best at saying it rhymes with riching. Sailor is a happy sailor. A riching sailor is a happy sailor. I'll let you put the proper letter there for the word riching. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me.
Brian, thanks. We'll talk to you again real soon.
All right. Take care. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too. You're listening to Your News Talk America. You're watching Your News Talk America at realnewstalk.com and via Facebook Live. Yes, I am wearing a tie today. You can check us out at realnewstalk.com.
News Talk America. This is your News Talk America with Jake Smith here on 92.7 WGMD Rehoboth Beach and 98.5 WUSX Seaford, the talk of Delmarva.
Luigi Mangione may be about to admit he's a killer. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. The man accused of gunning down United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson outside a New York City hotel in 2024 is in federal court now and may change his plea to guilty, but not to a murder charge, to stalking.
Under oath, in his own words, Mangione must admit the facts of the crimes, that he traveled to New York and stalked Brian Thompson, resulting in his death.
Fox's Brian Yennis also reports outside the court that could prevent Mangione from facing a separate murder trial.
Under New York's unusually strict double jeopardy law, once Mangione pleads guilty to federal crimes, it's generally illegal to try someone in state for the same criminal act. There are narrow exceptions, and both sides will likely fight it out before his September 8th state trial.
Another accused killer is in court now in South Carolina, Alec Murdaugh, whose convictions in the murders of his wife and son in 2021 were overturned by the state Supreme Court. He's the hearing before a new trial next year.
What jurors will be allowed to hear about Murdaugh's financial crimes, phone records, and DNA from an unknown person that was found under his wife's fingernails? Citing intense local publicity and family ties in Colleton County, the defense is asking the judge to move the trial to nearby Charleston.
Fox's Jonathan Sari outside the court. There's an arrest in Washington and vandalism at the World War II Memorial, which was spray-painted pink. U.S. Attorney for D.C. Janine Pirro calls it despicable. Melissa Ferris faces 2 felony charges, could put her in prison up to 10 years. President Trump's going to the Supreme Court to get the okay to resume construction of the White House ballroom.
The President's Solicitor General argues the injunction issued by the lower court is extraordinary and unlawful as it halts construction on an integrated military complex, including a secure ballroom space vitally required by national security. A group of historic preservationists are suing to stop the project, arguing it needs congressional oversight.
That's Fox's Jared Halpern. America's listening to Fox News.
A small business affirmation from Progressive. Bakery owners, you will be loved today. Every pastry will be flaky. Your cake will make a child's day. Your delivery van won't get sideswiped by a distracted garbage truck driver. But if so, breathe easy, knowing you'll get back to business quickly with Progressive protecting your commercial auto. See if you can save in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Lots of places can expose you to identity theft.
Oh no.
That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats to your identity, which is way more than anyone can do on their own. If we find anything suspicious, like new loans or changes to your financial accounts, we alert you right away, all through text, phone, email, or the LifeLock app. Get the alerts that could make all the difference. Save up to 30% with promo code NEWS at lifelock.com. Terms apply. Another update from your local news source, 92.7 and 98.5 WGMD, the talk of Delmarva.
Back to normal at Tidal Health after a major outage. The tech disruption started Thursday morning at the Salisbury Hospital when a sprinkler pipe was damaged during construction in the new observation unit. That single incident knocked out phone lines, internet connectivity, and the network's website. The sudden blackout forced appointment cancellations and some brief hospital diversions. Staff had to scramble to maintain communications, but they got a boost from Wacomico County, which provided emergency backup radios and other technical help. Hospital officials say operations are now restored, and they're reviewing what went wrong to prevent it from happening again. Healthcare workers can face particularly high risks in the workplace for violence, especially in hospitals and other care settings. One safety approach gaining traction is a wearable technology such as the panic button that can alert emergency responders or designated contacts and give a worker's location during an emergency. When such incidents occur, a quick response is vital, as Tyler Charahas, Director of Client Engagement at Silent Beacon, tells the Talk of Delmarva.
Response time is critical, especially when you're face-to-face with someone that can be aggressive. Being able to discreetly ask for help or to not make it very obvious of reaching for a phone and calling out to somebody.
He says the goal is to make sure healthcare workers have the support and resources they need to respond quickly. He says the goal is to make sure healthcare workers have support and resources they need to respond quickly when a dangerous situation develops. Reported in 2023, nearly 81% of nurses say they experienced workplace violence, and nearly half of them say the problem is increasing. Sussex County Arcadian girl has been hit with a $15,000 state fine over allegations of discrimination against a transgender woman who wanted to use the woman's bathroom. Cape Gazette reports the Delaware Human Rights and Civil Rights Commission ruled to the Hideout Arcade Bar and Grill in Midway area discriminated against Katie Sorber, who identifies as a woman but carries a driver's license marked male. Sorber says she was asked for the ID when she went to the bathroom at the establishment in April 23, but was denied. Ownership says it was in the right and will appeal. More on these and other stories, visit talkofdelmarva.com.
Craving wings? Head to Wings to Go, where flavor meets freshness. Featuring over 30 sauces and dry rubs, enjoy traditional or boneless wings, always cooked to order. Don't miss their new favorite fried panzerotti, chicken tenders, wraps, and more. Then save room for dessert with fried cheesecake, blueberry lemon cake, and cream cheese churros. Order Wings to Go in Long Neck 302-947-9444 or order on DoorDash. Wings to Go Long Neck. Simply great wings since 1985.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
Hour number 3 underway. Your News Talk America, your anchorman, Jake Smith, with you until noon Eastern Time. I want to welcome in my friends. Welcome back to the panel. Someone we had on, I guess, a couple of months ago, if I'm not mistaken. Richard Syrett is joining us, author of the book Tales from the Rock and Roll Twilight Zone. Richard has been a regular guest host on the internationally syndicated radio program Coast to Coast AM since 2014. Now, that show runs on one of our flagship stations, 92.7, the Talk of Delmarva. He's a veteran radio broadcaster with more than 3 decades in major market radio. He has worked on both sides of the microphone as a host and producer, building a reputation as a master storyteller and a perceived interviewer in the realm of the unexplained. He's the creator, producer, and host of Richard Syrett's Strange Planet, a widely followed podcast exploring mysteries at the intersection of the paranormal, the unusual, and the conspiratorial. Richard, welcome back to the program. I think I told you the last time that I had worked much of my career working on paranormal programming. A lot has changed. The acceptance of paranormal programming as normal, so to speak, is much different than it was back in the 70s and 80s when I was working on it, where if you could find someone who wanted to air something that was considered paranormal, you were very lucky at that time.
Absolutely. Jake, it's great to be with you again. How times have changed when we're talking about the alternative information space, because really what separates, what we used to talk about on the overnight shows and what becomes sort of mainstream, well, you give it about 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, there's no question. Times certainly have changed. Richard, you're going to talk about this morning some of the greatest legends in rock and roll who were on the precipice of incredible stardom and then died short of their 30th birthday. Now, we're going to start off with talking about Jim Morrison. And I think Morrison was so far ahead of his time with respect to his music, the music of the Doors and so forth. And I'll never forget, right after he died, and it must have been maybe a week or two after he died, that Love Her Madly off the L.A. Woman album was released. And every time that song played, I remember saying to myself, this song is playing and he's not even alive anymore. It's such a sad case because today his problems with mental illness, and he did have problems with mental illness regardless of, what it may have been diagnosed, probably would have been addressed today.
No question. I had an opportunity to get to know his former brother-in-law, Alan Graham, a little bit. We spoke on a television show. Later, I interviewed him on radio, podcast, and so forth. Alan Graham actually was adamant that Jim Morrison was probably the victim of fetal alcohol syndrome. His parents, this is a military family. We're talking about the late or the 1940s. Cocktail hour was just a thing, particularly in some military homes.
Sure.
His father was an admiral, and we didn't know then, or we didn't maybe pay as much attention to caring for the unborn the way we do now. Now, pregnant mothers sometimes never go eat near a cup of coffee, but
yeah, it's
his
changed.
mother was enjoying, maybe a couple of cocktails on a nightly basis. So he was born essentially drunk, and he started drinking by the time he was 7 or 8 years old, just to medicate, poor thing. So there was that. He was also just, as you say, incredibly talented, incredibly tuned in, and like so many artists, those things that make them so brilliant, that sensitivity and vulnerability, also makes them very susceptible, unfortunately, to other forces, drugs and alcohol. But again, another member of the 27 Club. And
that's what you call it, the 27 Club, sadly.
In the space of 2 years, and we didn't really pay attention to this. Robert Johnson, going back to the 1930s, the king of the Delta Blues was 27, but we didn't have a name we didn't call it the 27 Club then.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, July 69, Brian Jones, the co-founder of the Rolling Stones, 27. Then in September of 1970, Jimi Hendrix, 27. Janis Joplin, not even a month later, 27. And then, of course, July of 1971, Jim Morrison, 4 of them. That's when we started to pay attention to the 27 Club.
And Janis Joplin, I remember even at that time, Bobby McGee was released posthumously. She had already recorded it, and it was released, her version of Bobby McGee. And here, you're listening to these songs knowing the people who recorded them, they're not even around anymore. That's the strangest part about it, isn't it?
Yes, I agree. I felt the same way, for example, when John Lennon was murdered in 1980 and Double Fantasy came out.
Right.
I remember I got that album for Christmas. And there's something incredibly, painful. When you hear that music, it's like you got a gut punch because you feel like you were robbed. This is the last music that we'll hear from them in terms of original music, but the music lives forever. But we always think about what could have been with Jim Morrison. I would imagine that the Doors would have moved more into sort of a real blues type band, or maybe Jim Morrison would have left anyway and decided just to write poetry. But it's what we didn't get from these artists. And that's why sometimes it's hard to let go, and why sometimes, because they're larger than life, we have difficulty believing that someone just checked out from natural causes. I mean, sometimes the official narrative is true, but it's not complete. And those are some of the stories that I pull on those loose threads in Tales from the Rock and Roll Twilight Zone.
We are very pleased to have back with us on the panel this morning, Richard Syrett, author of Tales from the Rock and Roll Twilight Zone. One of those on your list I thought was very interesting, who I thought was going to be a big star. His band was going to be big, and that is Peter Ham of Badfinger. Tell us, Peter, they used to, I think, open for the Beatles, didn't they, before they really took off, Badfinger?
They did. They were, I believe they were signed on to Apple Records.
That's right. They were on the Apple label.
That's right. Yep. And Come and Get It, one of their big hits. Was
1970.
Was a
Summer
gift.
Of 1970, yeah.
What a gift that was. I mean, if it sounds like the Beatles when Badfinger performs that song, it's because that's a Paul McCartney composition. He gifted that to Badfinger, and of course it was huge. But again, Peter Ham, I believe he's part of the 27 Club as well. Such bad luck in that band. I think there maybe have been another member who took his own life as well. And I don't, I don't dedicate a chapter to Badfinger, but I certainly, talk about the pressures, not necessarily with Apple Records, but just the music industry, the recording industry in particular, was really the Wild West, starting in like the mid-1950s. I mean, we think of like the formation of Las Vegas and the mob, the mafia. Yep. Well, that was the recording industry in the 1950s. You had a lot of grifters, a lot of mobsters, a lot of sinister individuals who were involved. And imagine, this collision of these tough guys who were looking to exploit young artists, and often they were just ripped off, these artists. You know, they would skim or take the lion's share of, you know, touring profits and so forth. And what are these artists to do? They're trapped.
Yeah. Yeah, and today, of course, with touring today, which really is the music business, they don't make much money selling records anymore because they make most of their money on tour. We can talk about that. But Richard Syrett is joining us. Tales from the Rock and Roll Twilight Zone. Richard, we have to take a break. But I want to tell you a story about Van Morrison, which I think you'll find interesting. And we'll come back talking with Richard in just a moment on your News Talk America. It's Digital Interactive Friday. If you're not watching our program right now, you should. We're streaming video at realnewstalk.com. Stay with us.
Here's a look at your Delmarva forecast. Cloudy skies expected this afternoon with a chance of thunderstorms. Highs level off around 87, winds out of the east, 5 to 10 miles per hour. Mainly cloudy skies expected tonight. Slight chance of thunderstorms, lows dip down to about 70. Daytime highs approaching 86. Tomorrow, sunshine mixed with clouds at times. I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center, inland. Currently, it's 84 degrees.
MJ Powell, weekdays 3 to 6, here on 92.7 and 98.5 WGMD.
This 11 a.m. Wellness Minute is locally brought to you by PAM Health Rehabilitation Hospitals. Recovery doesn't end when the hospital stay does. That's why PAM Health offers specialized support groups for individuals recovering from stroke, brain injury, or amputation, and for the families who walk that journey beside them. Their support groups offer a strong, understanding community, both in person and virtually, where you can share experiences, ask questions, and receive real support and advice from those who've been there. As one member said, the doctors and therapists helped me recover my body. The support group helped me recover myself. To learn more, visit pamhealth.com. That's pamhealth.com.
When you're committed to doing things right, it shows. From the way you take care of your lawn to the pride you take in every pass. That's why Exmark builds mowers with a legendary quality of cut, dependability that lasts for generations, and an operator experience that makes mowing feel like anything but work. Because if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. Head on over to Southern States Milford Co-op in Milford, Delaware, or visit MilfordSouthernStates.com to learn more.
Tune in this Monday afternoon after the 4:30 news as WGMD's featured guest will be Jim Fritz of All American Mortgage, specializing in reverse mortgages and keeping you up to speed with Delmarva's ever-changing housing market this Monday afternoon after the 4:30 news.
Views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and not necessarily the staff, management, ownership, advertisers, or sponsors of WGMD.
Broadcasting from the Buckeye Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
You're watching Your News Talk America. Digital Interactive Friday continues. Our guest is Richard Syrett, author of the book Tales from the Rock and Roll Twilight Zone. And yes, some strange things have occurred in the Rock and Roll Twilight Zone. You may also recognize Richard as a regular guest host on the internationally syndicated radio program Coast to Coast AM since 2014. My old boss in Long Island, New York, Richard, where I worked, I did so much work on paranormal programming with the great Joel Martin. Joel and I have been friends now, I guess, close to 50 years. But he was on Coast to Coast AM as a guest many, many times. And he is the one that got me into looking into the paranormal and why we shouldn't just ignore it. It's there. But it's very interesting, some of the things that we're finding out now, especially with respect to UFOs.
Oh, yes.
We're learning a lot more than we knew.
Talk about going mainstream, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to. I had a consulting service. We worked for live events. We worked specifically for live concerts and things, and motion pictures and TV and so forth. But I used to enjoy every year going to a live event conference in London every March. And all of the managers and the agents of the music artists used to get together and just chat over some drinks, and it'd be interesting listening to some of the stories. Well, every year I have to tell you that Van Morrison's agent told some of the most unusual stories about him. He's a very interesting character. Doesn't get a lot of PR, but the great Van Morrison certainly has had a very unusual life, to say the least.
Oh, is that right? I'd love to hear more. Maybe it'll find its way into Volume 2 of Tales from the Rock and Roll Twilight Zone. But I call him the Bard of Belfast. I love Van Morrison.
I do as well. Now, let me just ask you, with regard to those who died at 27 in rock and roll, has there been any discussion in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame of creating an exhibit of pointing out those who died so young and that never really had the chance to achieve what they could have achieved?
That's a great question. I recently toured, I would say within the last 2 years, I toured the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with my two sons in Cleveland, and I didn't see anything alluding to it specifically, but that would be a great exhibit. It would also make, I think, a premise for a great television show, Forever 27. And people don't realize, they think of the big four that I mentioned, Jones, Hendrix, Joplin, and Morrison. Then, of course, we had Kurt Cobain in 1994, 27, and Amy Winehouse, I believe, in 2011. But the list goes on and on and on, whether, Ron Pigpen McKernan, the original keyboardist from the Grateful Dead. Andy Blind Owl Wilson, of course, that amazing vocalist from Canned Heat. Also 27. The list is like as long as my leg. Now, some of the names we may not recognize, and some of them are strictly, not strictly rock and roll musicians. Some of them are jazz musicians and blues musicians. But I think there's the prosaic explanation that at 27, these people went from, playing in bars. Now they're selling out soccer stadiums or football stadiums.
Yep.
They have all of this pressure, lack of privacy. And then into that mix, you have, this vulnerable, sensitive individual artist. They seek solace in drugs and alcohol. It's readily available. They're surrounded by sycophants who will never tell them no.
Yeah.
And so that makes for a very deadly cocktail, unfortunately. And that's kind of the peak of their artistic career in many cases, but there's more of a sort of a supernatural or astrological explanation that has to do with the planet Saturn. That your birth chart, and I don't necessarily subscribe to astrology, but it's fascinating nonetheless. When you're born, Saturn is located in a very specific place in your birth chart, and about 27 years later,
the Saturn
returns to your birth chart, and Saturn is known as the planet of karma and resolution. And so as it approaches, it can create all of these, conflicts of unresolved issues and so forth. It just adds even further pressure. They're living in a pressure cooker, these people. So for those who believe in astrology.
And unprepared. Most of them unprepared for that pressure cooker, right?
Absolutely.
Richard?
They're kids, 27. Yeah. My boys are 20. I can't imagine. They've lived twice, 2 lifetimes by the time they're 27, these artists. It's unimaginable. They're not prepared for it.
Our producer, Eric, just posted in the Dial Lounge, brought to you by Meineke doing car care right. What about Bob Marley?
Bob Marley, this book is based on a podcast I produced back in 2018, and I talk about Bob Marley and the CIA. Jamaica in the 1970s was of great interest to the CIA. They had a left-leaning prime minister or government, Prime Minister Manley, who was cozying up to Fidel Castro. Jamaica has tremendous deposits of bauxite, which is essential, really, you could say, to Americans' national security, steel production, aluminum, and so forth.
Interesting.
So when Manley started cozying up to Castro, the CIA took notice, and I believe They sent representatives down there to kind of straighten Manley out, but he wouldn't have it. He wouldn't listen. And Bob Marley was seen, even though he tried to remain apolitical, both the left and the right were trying to cozy up to Bob Marley because he was such a tremendous cultural influence. And it was perceived that Marley was maybe moving a little further left into the embrace of John Manley. Could that have been the reason the CIA maybe orchestrated an assassination attempt against Bob Marley? During a rehearsal, a gang went into his house and shot up the entire household. Marley was shot. His manager was shot. His wife was shot in her head. Thankfully, they all lived. They all survived miraculously. And there's a great scene, Bob Marley performing at this peace concert. A few days after that assassination attempt, he still has a bullet in his arm, and he's reaching out to the crowd saying, we have to come together.
Wow. What a story. Thank you for that, Richard. I did not know that story, and our producer, Eric, thank you so much for bringing that up so I could ask Richard that question. So we've got all of these incredible artists. We've got their music for eternity, and I'm so pleased that so many young people today are listening to the music that we enjoyed, Richard. But what does it tell you about the fact that they gave us this gift, left us so early, and yet we remember them, and we're so sympathetic to the things that they had to live under to give us this great gift of music? What do you think?
Well, I think one of the central themes that I explore in Tales from the Rock and Roll Twilight Zone is the manipulation of the music industry, the infiltration by intelligence groups, for example. Mm-hmm. Yes, the music is important, but it's a tool. It can be used, obviously, for good. Music inspires people, but it can also be used to manipulate and subvert. And there's an entire chapter devoted to the Beatles, an entire section of the book devoted to the Beatles. The first chapter proposes that the Beatles, and I love the Beatles, I know they're a sacred cow, I think they were unwitting participants in a giant psyop. They were, really? We think of Beatlemania as being this organic cultural event. Right. I don't think it was exactly organic. I think at least parts of it were engineered. And I go into how the British intelligence, let's call it the British Crown, to use shorthand, that involved an institution like the Tavistock Institute, which was studying mass psychology and behavioral modification and brainwashing techniques and propaganda. I think the Beatles were used. They weren't witting participants, but the machine got behind them, and they were launched at America. We called it the British invasion. I don't think that was metaphorical. Right. It was deliberate. They wanted to subvert the youth, and they were successful.
That's very interesting. That is something I've never heard before. I mean, obviously, when John Lennon lived here in this country and emigrated here, the government was investigating him. They were harassing him. They were trying to kick him out of this country because he had an arrest, I believe, in the UK for cannabis, right?
Yes. John Lennon came to Toronto, where I am, to perform with his Plastic Ono band. And this is a little side project he had. He met the great Marshall McLuhan, Canada's media and communications guru. Wow. McLuhan, and I know one of his last graduate students, a friend of mine who's in the book, Nelson Thal. He tells me this story. Lennon shows up at McLuhan's office at the University of Toronto. McLuhan sits him down and explains to him how he and his bandmates in the Beatles were useful fools, how they were used by the British Crown or the elites or the intelligence to subvert America's youth. Lennon reportedly stormed out of that meeting. He was so angry, but he came back a few hours later, sat down, they talked some more, and he left convinced that McLuhan was right. And you can see in the music how that changed the trajectory of Lennon's outlook. Did that cause Lennon to say, I'm quitting the Beatles? I can't say for sure. But it's certainly, you look at albums like Mind Games, which came out in 1973.
Yeah, that's right. That was 1975.
Exactly.
Or 74.
Yeah, he's talking about these things. He's talking about, how we are being manipulated, how we are being influenced. And I think Beatlemania was a perfect example of that. You see how the youth culture, almost in lockstep with the Beatles, as their hair got longer, America's youth's hair got longer. I mean, the elites figured out a long time ago, if you want to influence and manipulate people, you don't use politics. You can listen to a 3-hour speech and it won't do anything. A 3-minute pop song that bypasses the analytical mind, that has tremendous power for good
Richard,
or evil.
that is a great point. I mean, take a look at those who have Alzheimer's dementia today. What specifically do they use to reach into the brain? To activate the brain? Music, right?
Exactly. They'll take them back, yes, to 1945 when they were young. Exactly.
Well, and me, they would probably take me back to 1970 or 1971. But
same here.
Okay. Richard Sarrett, author, Tales from the Rock and Roll Twilight Zone. My friends, there is a direct link to Amazon to order Richard's book on my show notes today at realnewstalk.com. Richard, it's always a pleasure when you come on. Please don't be a stranger. Love to have you back.
I'm waiting, willing, and able. Thank you, Jake.
All right, and all our best wishes to everyone up in Toronto.
Thank you.
Great city. Thank you, Richard. You're watching Your News Talk America, back in just a moment. Wow, what a great segment.
Best part of your day is between 9 and noon Eastern Time on Your News Talk America.
Here is the marine forecast from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center. Partly sunny today, afternoon showers and storms possible in the area, and highs top out near 82 degrees. And on the water, winds turn to the east around 5 knots by afternoon, seas a foot or less. The current water temperature is 76 degrees. At Cambridge, low tide 12:34 p.m., high tide 6:06 p.m., low tide 12:40 a.m., and at Rehoboth Beach, high tide 9:32 a.m., low tide 3:35 p.m., high tide 9:58 p.m.
The Rita Cosby Show, weeknights at 10 on WGMD's 98.5. Jake Smith, mid-mornings on WGMD. You're listening to WGMD.
This WGMD Fox Business Update is brought to you by Sussex Environmental Consultants. For a healthy home, call 302-947-1810.
I'm Jerry Willis, and this is the Fox Business Report. There's a disappointing reading on how people are feeling about the economy. The University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Index declined this month to a reading of 51, lower than expected. And retail sales slumped in July, down 0.6%. Bank of America predicted the decline, saying Amazon's earlier Prime Day sale and discounts from competitors in June pushed some purchases earlier, and more than 75% of World Cup games were played in June. Some economists were predicting when the benefit of tax refunds faded, so would spending. SanDisk shares are up 8.5%. The chip maker is optimistic about coming years. It's encouraged by strong demand for the artificial intelligence build-out. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Jeannie Coselda. Invested in you.
My name is Whitney Allen, and I'm a widow. My husband, Ryan, died. We never thought we'd ever have to use life insurance, but the unexpected happened. With Ethos, signing up was fast and 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. No medical exams, and you can get up to $3 million worth of coverage. I am grateful we were prepared.
Get your free quote at ethos.com/term. That's ethos.com/term. Paid spokesperson. Time spent on application may vary. Online health questions required.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
We're going to turn our attention to international affairs at this point in Your News Talk America. We're streaming video at realnewstalk.com. I want to welcome to the program for the very first time Stephen P. Bucci. Stephen is visiting fellow Philip N. Trulock Center for Leadership Development at the Heritage Foundation. He served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer. Thank you, sir, for your service to our nation. And a top official at the Pentagon. His research and writing at Heritage focus on cybersecurity, military special operations, and defense support of to civil authorities. Stephen, thanks so much for joining us on Your News Talk America this morning.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Let me just ask this question right out of the gate this morning. Iran is suspected as the source of recent cyber attacks against water companies located in the Midwest. Do you agree that that is the case? And what is Iran capable of with respect to cyber attacks against the United States and its allies?
Iran, strangely enough, actually has a pretty solid offensive capability they're not at the level of Russia and China or even some of the Western countries, but they're better than a lot of folks out there. So it's possible. I have not seen the forensics on it. I don't have a certainty that it's them. It could just be that particularly in Minnesota, where this seemed to have been the start, they're pretty weak on a lot of their government programs, and they may be just as weak in their cybersecurity on these facilities. But America needs to realize our very diverse infrastructure system is, while it gives you a measure of protection, it also gives you some vulnerability, because if they can find their way in, it's possible. Some of these these systems are very old, legacy systems. They're not cutting edge technology. That opens up some gaps. So regardless of who did it, it's a problem, and we need to find out who did it and plug whatever gaps allowed this to happen.
I wrote this question out for you this morning myself, and I give myself credit for this, Steve. So here it is. Will the emergence of AI make it easier for America's enemies to target us by way of cyber attacks?
Certainly it will, because they can use AI to develop the offensive tools. Keep in mind, offensive tools are a lot simpler and easier to develop than the defensive means you have to stop them. An offensive tool only needs to find one hole in the wall to get through and do mischief. The defense, you got to protect everything all the time. So it's more complex software to do that. But it's a constant battle, has been for several decades, of the bad guys trying to get in places, the good guys trying to keep them out, or if they get in, finding them quickly, rooting them out, and mitigating any damage they may have done. And that's going to continue. That's the nature of the digital world today. And we're pretty good at both ends of that spectrum. But it's a constant battle, and we have to stay sharp and stay on it and never assume away any adversary. Even if it's somebody you don't think is that technologically savvy, they only need a couple of really good programmers to develop the tools to potentially do damage.
We're being joined on the panel this morning, Your News Talk America Digital Interactive Friday, by Stephen P. Bucci, visiting fellow at the Philip and Trulock Center for Leadership Development at the Heritage Foundation. One of our listener producers posted a question for you, Stephen. I'd like to get to that now, if that's okay. Does the United States government have the capability to disrupt Iranian cryptocurrency and precious metals exchange?
Absolutely. We have that capability. We have it on the covert side. There are certain parts of our government who could go in there and do that sort of thing. But we also have the capability overtly through the Department of the Treasury to go in and do close accounts down, do stuff like that. Our economic power elements are very, very strong, very capable. And it's not just guys over there with, nightshades and sleeve garters counting money. There's a lot of digital scientists, if you will, who are working the cryptocurrency and all those other methodologies that the bad guys use. We've got a lot of good guys that are out there countering them as we speak.
Now, yesterday, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that the United States is applying measures never before seen on Iran. And he said, and I quote, "It will be a combination of economic isolation like the world has never seen before and the continued blockade of the Strait of Hormuz that will keep anything from going in and out," Secretary Bessent said. Your thoughts on what the Secretary said? Is it possible to really take down the Iranian regime economically at this point?
Yeah, it is. Now, economic means generally don't do things instantaneously. There's a longer runway for them to have the effect that you want. But that's really the squeeze. When you have people who are willing to die for their cause, as the leadership in Iran are, this is a theological thing for them. It's a mission from God, their God. And they're willing to die and take the rest of their country with them, to be honest with you. But monetarily, we can close them down and stop them from having the means to do these things because they simply won't be able to pay for it. So the actions by the Department of the Treasury are key to this effort, and in many ways are the pointy end of the spear. You don't normally say that about economic power, but in this case it is, and it's having an effect.
There was a story in the Jerusalem Post this past week that an Israeli official said that the Iranians right now fear Scott Bessent more than they fear Pete Hegseth. What do you say to that?
I think that's true. We've taken a lot of the military capabilities in Iran out. What they have left is a remnant. They can still do damage, until you get the last missile and the last drone, they can still do damage. We're working on that, but every day and every minute of every day, Secretary Bessent's people are putting the screws to the Iranian economy. It's lost astronomical amounts of money and capability, and it's strangling. And that is really, I think we're going to see an instance where economic power really becomes the predominant tool in the toolbox in this case.
Interesting. That is very interesting. Well, you know what? Maybe Scott Bessent's office should be not at the Treasury, but in the Pentagon. What do you say to that?
They're fine where they are. They're doing their job, and they're doing it very effectively. A superpower needs to use all the elements of power that it has at its disposal. We have a very robust economy, even when we have bad days.
Right.
And there are very specific buttons we can push to put more pressure on the Iranian government, and it's working. So good on Secretary Bessent. I'll tell you what, when he got confirmed, we got a good one.
I think he is, in my lifetime, and I'm pushing 70, he's the best Secretary of the Treasury that this nation has ever had.
The most effective in a conflict situation like this, for sure.
Stephen, a question from our listener producer, Eric, on the Meineke Doing Car Care Right message board. Where is Victor Bout, the arms dealer? Is he back in business?
I am not aware that he is, but those kind of guys, until you put them behind bars somewhere and cut off,
or put them out of their misery.
Yeah, that's always an option. But that's I don't know for sure. And unfortunately, even if they did put them out of business, breathing wise, guys like that, their minions tend to pick up the ball. And
they're a dime a dozen, aren't they, Stephen? They're a dime a dozen, those guys, those types.
Absolutely.
Right? We have a regular guest to this program, Dr. Antonio Gracefo, who's a war correspondent, travels all over the world. Burma, he's in Ukraine today on the front lines in the war against Russia. And given all that Ukraine has been able to do recently with their drone program in inflicting significant damage on the Russian refineries and really putting the hurt on the Russian people who are now lining up for gasoline, your thoughts on where Vladimir Putin is politically, and are the Ukrainians doing damage to Putin's political future in Russia? What do you think?
I think they are. They've been on the defensive since this thing started, but of late they're reaching out both long range and at strategic targets, and that by bringing the war home to the Russian people, that's going to put an enormous amount of pressure on Putin over a constituency that eventually he's going to have to listen to. That is an important step. It's a big move forward for the Ukrainians and trying to get the Russians out of their country. A big improvement of their relative positions. If I was Putin, I'd be sweating a little bit. Not only is this taking way longer than he prophesied it was going to, this was just going to be a simple military.
Yes, they always
operation.
are, but they very rarely are.
Yeah, and he grabbed hold of the tail of a tiger with the Ukrainians, and they are now moving beyond that survival mode, that wounded tiger in the corner kind of position they were in before. Now they're reaching out and touching Putin where it hurts him most, in the pocketbook, and that's potentially going to have a big effect. We could see that tyrant fall, and maybe the Ukrainian people will be lionized by the Russians as having freed them of Putin's tyranny.
Do we know at this point how many Russian soldiers have died in this war? I'm not talking about the North Korean soldiers. There have been plenty of them that have died as well. But how many Russian soldiers have actually come home in body bags to the Russian people?
I don't have a good count of that, but I would caution us, just numbers of casualties are not really the key to victory. But in this case, in trying to convince the Russian people that what their government is doing is
worth it, right,
misguided, it does have an effect. Those body bags start to bother the babushkas, the moms, the wives. When they see that, they're going to be screaming that it's got to stop. And we're reaching that point.
Stephen P. Bucci, visiting fellow, Philip N. Trueluck, Center for Leadership Development at the Heritage Foundation. Stephen, thank you for a very informative segment. We'd love to have you back at some point in the future.
I would look forward to doing it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, and have a great weekend. You're watching Your News Talk America. It's Digital Interactive Friday. We'll be back with Salute the Troops in just a moment. Stay with us.
America at realnewstalk.com.
Here's a look at your Delmarva forecast. Overcast skies this afternoon with a chance of thunderstorms. Highs level off around 87, east winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Slight chance for storms tonight, lows around 70, mainly cloudy skies expected. Daytime highs approaching 86 tomorrow. Sunshine mixed with clouds at times. I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center along the coast. Currently, it's 81 degrees.
92.7 and 98.5 WGMD, where the news comes first. Get the WGMD app online today.
I'm Dr. Mike Katz, the Delaware Republican Party endorsed candidate for United States Senate. This primary election matters. Democratic Socialists are just one seat away from a supermajority in Dover. We cannot afford to sit this one out. We need to nominate the Republican who can fire Chris Coons in November and lead Republicans to victory across Delaware. Early voting begins September 2nd and runs through September 15th. Every Republican must vote. I would be honored to earn your trust and your vote. I'm Dr. Mike Katz, and I approve this message.
Spell tree and complete tree care.
LAWN Lawn.
What? Spell tree and complete tree care.
LAWN Lawn.
What? Yes, Complete Lawn Care is ready to complete all of your lawn maintenance and landscaping projects, freshening up your landscaping with new mulch, complete spring cleanups, leaf removal, mowing, seeding, sod, and pavers. We are complete. Complete Tree Care and
Complete Lawn Care.
302-947-2273.
Hi, I'm Connor, and I'm part of the commercial design team at Giuliani Associates. Law firms, medical practices, financial offices. Your space should reflect your professionalism, but it also has to function every day. Circulation, privacy, durability, efficiency. We design tenant fit-outs and commercial spaces that work operationally and position your business for growth. Giuliani Associates. Architecture is an investment. Design at betterdelmarva.com. Design at betterdelmarva.com.
If you can't find your favorite Talk of Delmarva shows on the WGMD app, here's a tip. Download the WGMD app from the Apple Store or Google Play on your smartphone. Open the app and click on the red box on the upper left of the screen to reveal a pull-down menu. Click on Other Stations, then click on 92.7 or 98.5. Then enjoy your favorite shows from the Talk of Delmarva.
To honor those men and women who have defended freedom whenever and wherever it was threatened, the Talk of Delmarva presents Salute the Troops.
Salute the Troops was sickened to hear this report. Here it is, courtesy of the Fox News Channel this morning.
And now the search is on for some vandals who put pink spray paint on the World War II memorial and bubbles in its fountains.
People fought and died for our country, and it's dishonoring this country and all we've been through. And I came here to pay respect to those who fought for our country before I did.
Salute the Troops believes that those who defaced our World War II memorial or any war memorial in the United States should be punished severely, lose their citizenship, and be deported to the country of their choice from the United States of America. For Salute the Troops, I'm Jake Smith.
When a warrior faces adversity, he fights through it. He finds a way. Freedom isn't free. Rolling strong. Belief. Believe you can, and you will.
Wheelchairs for Warriors provides mobility solutions to veterans and first responders injured in the line of duty. Join the mission and visit wheelchairsforwarriors.org.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
You're listening to your anchorman, Jake Smith, on your News Talk America.
Back in DS2 live and in living color. Remember that with NBC live and in living color on NBC, and then the Peacock would open up. That was TV was TV. No more. 800-518-9292. 800-518-9292. Why am I giving the number out? We normally don't take calls second and third hour on Fridays. Well, I'm outraged that our World War II memorial in Washington, D.C. has been desecrated. I'm outraged at that. Now, those who did this, obviously, are listening to the Demcoms, the Democrat Socialists of America, who hate America. They hate what we stand for. They hate freedom. And I maintain that we should punish these people severely, and then when they're done paying for what they've done, kick them the hell out of this country. They should be, they should have to give up their citizenship. They are not American citizens. We cannot accept that our war memorials are going to be disrespected. We cannot accept that our war memorials are going to be damaged or are going to be desecrated. We cannot, as a nation, accept this, and we shouldn't. Now, I realize most of our World War II veterans have been called home. But for all our veterans listening to this program this morning, I am so sorry that you had to hear of this, because all of our veterans have defended this nation. You may not have defended us in World War II. You may have defended us in Korea, in Vietnam, in the Middle East. But the fact is, this nation respects your sacrifice. And for your families of those who offered the ultimate sacrifice, my friends, we respect you as well, and we will defend you until we take our last breath. Let's go to the phones here on the Meineke Doing Car Care Right talk lines. As I said, we normally don't take phone calls, but I think I'd like to hear from you what you think about the desecration of our World War II memorial, which is absolutely beautiful. If you've never been there, you should go see it. Go ahead.
Jake, I wonder if President Trump's executive order that stood with the destruction of the statues
monuments,
all
yes,
around our country, the monuments. I wonder if that still holds true. I think it was a 10-year sentence, wasn't it?
You know, you're probably right. I believe it was. You know, we'll check into that. Okay.
I'd like to know if it holds true here. These people should be drowned in the pond that they ripped up there also in Washington. It's a disgrace what they're doing.
All right. Thank you. Again, we are a revolution, this country, my friends. These are revolutionaries that are doing this. This is the insurgency that the Democrat Communist Party has put together in this country to do these things because they think that we believe that we are a weaker country because of it. We are not a weaker country because of it. We are a stronger country because of it. And those who did this, I hope they're punished to the fullest extent of the law and then lose their citizenship and kicked out of this country. They do not belong in the United States. Let them select the country where they want to go, and then let's send them there. All right, let's go to our next caller, Meineke Doing Car Care Right talk lines. Go ahead.
Hello, Jake. This is Bill. I was going to say I think that that a lot of these people, I mean they need to pay the sentence, but instead of just any country, I think they need to be to be sent to the communist country of their choice.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. But
they're a bunch of commies.
On January 6th, we were accused of disrespecting government property. Haven't they disrespected? Shouldn't they go to Pelosi's gulag?
Absolutely. And I think along with that, I love the Babylon's Bee rendition of John Lennon's Imagine, because it talks about the gulags and having no food and all this stuff that communism does. And the communism has infested these people's minds, and they're running around and they're disrespecting our country.
All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate you calling in on the Meineke Doing Car Care Right Talk lines. Let's go to our next caller on this Friday. We are talking about the desecration of our World War II memorial. Unacceptable. Go ahead, caller.
Thank you for taking my call.
Go ahead, please. Grizzly, go ahead, or I'm going to have to move along.
I am a survivor of the 9th Marine Expeditionary Force of 1965. I cannot believe what I'm looking at today. In utter disgust that our children are not being taught the true history of this nation. And so many people like myself have put in so much of their life. The fortunate ones are the ones who left here early. The rest of us that have to stay to the bitter end have to stand taller and be louder than we've ever been before. This is America. Love it or leave it. No.
All right. Thank you very much. And I wonder if those who defaced a World War II memorial would have spent 8 or 9 months at sea defending freedom and liberty in the Middle East. Think that's a fair question? Go ahead, Joan.
Good morning, Jake. Thank you for taking my call.
Go ahead.
I'll try to be swift. I know you're...
Yes, we're running out of time, so please go.
I apologize. Okay, my dad and his both uncles served during World War II. My dad suffered from shell shock, what they used to call it, but now PTSD. All the men that suffered because they loved this country. How many widows were left there because of it? Number 2, Vietnam. I remember that era very, very clearly, that they were spit upon. And lastly, when I was a child, I went on a class trip to Arlington, and it brought tears to my eyes, and I saw the Eternal Flame with John F. Kennedy. This is the last straw, Jake. Absolutely. And you know, these
Joan,
people...
let me ask you, Joan, you're telling me now we've gotten to the point in this country where we have to have 24/7 police protection at our war memorials?
Well, if it has to be, it has to be. It's a disgrace. It shouldn't be allowed, but after all, we really don't know who's doing it, whether it's Rent-A-Mall...
Oh, we know who's doing it. DEMCOM insurgents are doing it. That's who's doing it, Joan. We know, because they've conditioned them. They've prepared them. They started preparing them in schools through the teachers' unions. They started preparing them in colleges and universities, and now they're doing exactly what they have been taught to do, what they've been paid to do by Soros and others. But here's the thing. They believe that they are telling us or putting in our heads that this is a weakened country. It's not. It's a stronger country, and we're not going to tolerate this from them.
You're right. We're teetering, but you know what? As long as we have you and all the other people out there that love this country, I will go to my grave. I would never allow, if I could, at my age, to stop what's
Joan,
going on, Jake. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you. You as well. All right, my friends, it's been a very interesting program. I know you probably didn't hear about that defacing of the World War II memorial. It's not the headlines in this country, but it damn well should be. We cannot tolerate this stuff. We have to fight back. This is not a weakened country. It's a strong country. I'm going to be off on Monday, as I mentioned, taking care of some personal biz. Brigadier General Blaine Holt will be filling in for me. His first guest coming up at 9:06 on Monday will be Colonel Tony Shaffer. So General Holt and Tony Shaffer will be they'll be hosting Your News Talk America. He won't be here. He'll be back in Idaho hosting it. But remember, my friends, you have a voice. Make sure your voice is heard loud and clear. Millie, Triel, you're home, and we miss you. See you Tuesday.